So I'm going to make an announcement on the Bible study thing that it's back to the way it was. It's just pure YouTube. So now you can share it with people. If you missed the Bible study, all you got to go is just go right to the YouTube, subscribe, and you'll get those notifications again from Cade. But I'll get that out to y'all, and that's going to be awesome. All right. So who can tell those who couldn't make it? Who was the first three disciples we talked about? Yeah. So we did Simon, Andrew, Philip, James, John, and Nathaniel. And then tonight we're going to do Thomas, Judas, and then we're going to do James. Son of Alphaeus.
Which is different than James, the brother of Jesus.
Very good, yeah.
Because we talked about that last week.
We did.
Did you go listen to the message?
No, you're right though, because we did address that at the last Bible study. I'm going to address it a little bit tonight.
Who wrote Book of James?
We're going to address that tonight.
That came up last Bible.
Because there are three Simons that's mentioned, not in the 12 disciples, but just in the Gospels. You'll see three Simons. There are three Judases, or Judah in the Hebrew, Judah, and there's like three James. So there's a lot. Some of them are related, some are not related, and it's just we're kind of going to just look through this and learn from these next three disciples.
These Hebrew mothers should have got more creative.
But that is the culture. It's because they're being named after their family.
Even today?
Yeah. A lot of them, it's almost like it's just a recycle almost. My buddy Stephen Corey, most of you have not met him. He, his sister, and his two brothers all carry their father's name as their middle name. He's Stephen Naim Corey, Lydia Naim Corey, Paul Naim Corey, and Peter Naim Corey. That's the Arabic culture. Then his firstborn son in the Arab culture, the same thing with the Jews. The Jews do the same thing. That's why you read through the Kings. It's almost like the same name. You see it kind of repeated at times. James, as we talked about at the last Bible study, is basically Jacob. It's a variation, English, Greek variation of the Hebrew name Jacob. So Jacob is a very popular name because it's a patriarch name. But like Stephen Corey, when he has his first son, he has to give his son's first name after his father's first name. So even though he's Stephen Naim Corey, his son is Naim Stephen Corey. They flip-flop. So then Naim, when he grows up and he gets married, all his kids will carry his first name, but then his firstborn son will carry Stephen's first name. And that's why it goes for generations. It's just, so when you sit there and you read, James, son of Alphaeus, they all know that, of course, now that's the Greek variation. We're going to dive into that. But when someone says son of, they can tell you exactly what family group they came out of. In fact, some of them know so to the point where they even know what tribe of Israel they came out of. Levi, that's a given, he later became Matthew. So just even in his first name was following after the tribe of Levi. So that's why I'm kind of doing this study, because it's really cool to understand, but also know who we're reading about, and then also some other attributes, some of the things, like basically I call these guys the forgotten and the misunderstood. These three disciples, I call them the forgotten and the misunderstood. And so we're going to dive into that. So let's get the gospel out. We're going to be looking at Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Our first one's going to be Judas Thaddeus, or Judah in the Hebrew. Judah Thaddeus. And I shared this, was it the last Bible study or the first one, that sometimes I've heard preachers say this, and I know they're just trying to make a joke or they're just ignorant. But they say like, "Oh, don't name your son Judas." That's just, I'm like, there's two Judases in the 12 disciples. So I'm like, what about Thaddeus? Because don't associate the Judas Iscariot. And I'm like, Judas is just a Greek variation of Judah, which is a very strong, profound name in the Bible as well as today's culture. So I had to get that off my chest. I apologize. All right, Judas Thaddeus. Somebody read Matthew 10, verse 3. Matthew 10, verse 3. And then somebody can jump on Mark 3, verse 18. Luke 6, 16. And then John 14, 22. Last but not least, Acts 1, 13. Now, both Judas Thaddeus and James, the son of Alphaeus, they will all accept John 14. They're going to, the synoptic gospels, which is Matthew, Mark, and Luke, okay? They're going to have the same passages, so we don't have to do it twice, okay? Just to let you know, if you're keeping notes, Judas Thaddeus, some of these is the listing of the entire 12 disciples. But each writer identifies something different with Thaddeus than like James. James is called James all through the gospel. But they always say son of Alphaeus to differentiate between James and John, sons of Zebedee. Okay? But Thaddeus, each writer wrote something unique about this young man. By the way, how old were these guys?
Under 21.
That's right, under 20.
Oh, 20.
Yeah. 20. No, they were 19 and younger. All right. Grace, read Matthew 10, verse 3. Now listen carefully to each passage, which is the 4 Gospels and the book of Acts. So there's 5 different passages talking about Judas Thaddeus, and listen to something different each time. Go ahead.
Philip and Bartholomew, Thomas and Matthew the publican, James the son of Alphaeus, and Lebbaeus, whose surname was Thaddeus.
Okay.
And what? And
Whose surname was Thaddeus.
but his first name.
Lebbaeus.
Lebbaeus.
Okay. So we're going to get into that. Okay, we're going to get into that. All right. Cade, Mark 3:18.
Andrew, Philip, Bartholomew, Matthew, Thomas, James the son of Alphaeus, Thaddeus, Simon the Canaanite.
Okay. So that one, we got Lebbaeus. Now we got Thaddeus. Luke 6:16, sir.
And Judas, the brother of James, and Judas Iscariot, which was also the traitor.
Okay. So now we got Lebbaeus, Thaddeus, and now we have brother of James. Okay. John 14:22.
Judas saith unto him, not Iscariot, Lord, how is it that thou wilt manifest thyself unto us, and not unto the world?
Okay, now we got Lebbaeus, Thaddeus, brother of James, and now Judas, which John puts in parentheses. He's, for the reader's sake, this is not the one who is Iscariot, the one who betrayed Jesus. This is the other Judas. All right, Acts 1:13. All right, we'll read it.
I got it right here.
Sorry.
And when they were come in, they went up into the upper room, and where abode both Peter and James and John and Andrew, Philip and Thomas, Bartholomew and Matthew, James the son of Alphaeus, and Simon Zelotes, and Judas the brother of James.
Okay, so there it is, Judas, the brother of James. So it's twice. This time it was Thaddeus, son of James, but now we got Judas, son of James. So each one kind of has a little bit kind of a variation to explaining on who Judah Thaddeus is. So let's break this down so we know exactly what we're reading. Lebbaeus, it's a Hebrew word. Now, as I was sharing the last couple studies on this is for our sake again. I'll explain one more time. Anytime you see someone's name with an S at the end, Judas, Lebbaeus, Thaddeus, that is not the Hebrew or Aramaic spelling. It is a Greek English variation of the Hebrew or Aramaic name. Greek and English, we put S's at the end of our names or words, if you want to say. You will never find an S at the end of a word in the Hebrew language or even in Aramaic. So when you see that, when you see Lebbaeus, you already know immediately this is not the exact spelling in the Hebrew. But the first 3 letters, L-E, which is in Hebrew, because there's no B's in the Hebrew language, L-E-V, Lev, means heart. This is the Hebrew language. What does Lebbeus mean? What does Thaddeus means? It means heart or courageous heart. This is not his actual name. It was Lebbeus is the Hebrew spelling. Thaddeus is the Aramaic spelling. They're like cousin languages, okay? Not Arabic, but Aramaic. Same context, same definition, heart or courageous heart. His birth name is what? Judah. That's his birth name. Surname Thaddeus either is referring to it is his family name, or it could be simply a description of who the kind of person he is. His attributes as someone who has a courageous heart. We've learned from the very beginning of this study of the apostles, Jesus was all about giving nicknames, or someone was referred to as a nickname or some kind of a surname. And this is the title that they carried either from a child or as an adult. And this is no different here. Judah is carrying the name Thaddeus, or in this case, Matthew is the only one who gives him the Hebrew context of Judah, Lebbeus. Now, this is where I'm going to say this very politely. There are times that certain versions do not translate absolutely correctly, okay? Now, when I talked about the 7 churches in Revelation, okay, can someone tell me what Philadelphia means? Remember, what does it mean? Okay, what?
Brotherly love.
Okay, brotherly love. If you break it down, there's phileo, which is love. Then you have adelphoi. Adelphoi is Greek for brother or brethren. That's when you read through the Acts saying, and the brethren came together. The Greek word is adelphoi. But brother is adelpho. Adelpho is singular. It's narrowing it down. It's not brethren. It's now brother. When you read in Luke chapter 6, verse 16, and even Acts chapter 1, verse 13, it's not son of James. It's not brother of James. It's son of James. That's the literal translation in the Greek. Does that make sense?
So why is it translated in some Bibles as brother?
I don't know. But in the Greek, it is son of James, not brother of James. Because this is where people get confused. When it says, okay, this is Judas, brother of James. Oh, that must be the same 2 half-brothers of Jesus. One who wrote the book of James, the other one wrote the book of Jude. But we take the proper context in the Greek. It's not brother of James, it is son of James. Again, explaining the family background. James and John, sons of Zebedee. You have James, son of Alphaeus. Now we have Thaddeus, or Judas Thaddeus, son of James. And to understand this difference, now it makes complete sense you can't compare Judas Thaddeus to be the writer of Jude, because Jude and James were brothers, the writers of the book of James and the book of Jude. There's a lot of same names. I know it can be kind of confusing. The reason I'm trying to explain this is because a lot of people get this mixed up. And, but yeah, Judas, the son of James, he was just one of the followers that Jesus had called him to be his apostle. I'm looking at, I'm going to get into the writer of the book of James a little later. I'm going to skip that for right now. So now we're going to look at next one is James, the son of Alphaeus. As I shared at the last Bible study, James, the son of Alphaeus, he has been known as James the Less. And it's not that he is less of a disciple or less of a human being or less significant. it's just talking about he's not mentioned as much as the other James. James, the older brother to John, the sons of Zebedee. That James is mentioned quite often. In fact, out of the 12 disciples, Jesus even had a closer group that really stuck with him on many occasions when the others were not with him. Who were those three?
That was wasn't that James, John,
And Peter?
then
And Peter.
Yeah.
Exactly right. There is one other occasion when, because you kind of feel sorry for Andrew, because Andrew was, according to John, he was the first one who went after Jesus along with John. They both went up there, but Andrew interacted with Jesus first. Remember, we talked about that in the first week. He really got his brother Simon, and James went and told, or John went and told James, his brother. It's like Andrew kind of got this thing going. We're like spreading the word, saying the Messiah has come, the Messiah has come. And really, as the 3 years went by, Andrew kind of got shuffled in the back a little because there's always Peter, James, and John. Peter, James, and John. Peter, James, and John. But there is one passage where it does talk about Peter, James, and John, and Andrew. So he wasn't completely cut out, but the Lord began to focus on Peter, James, and John during his earthly ministry. So that's just kind of interesting on that. But this is here, he's called James the Less. And you won't find that term in the Bible, but a lot of the early church history historians and some of the early church fathers, they refer to him that because he says there's not very much information in there. So he's, like I said, been referred to as James the Less. Now, James, son of Alphaeus. Alphaeus is the Greek variation of Halphi. Halphi is the Hebrew name of his father, and that was, the Aramaic name of his father. So this is how the Bible, the writers, were able to differentiate between James, the son of Zebedee, to James, son of Alphaeus. And a lot of times too, they did that because that's just how they would be identified. They would carry their father's name or sometimes the family name, and that was nothing out of the ordinary. Just because not every single one did that doesn't mean it wasn't the culture or the way they would communicate or identify themselves was through their family name. And again, the same passages, Matthew 10, Mark 3, Luke 6, John 14, and Acts chapter 1. Now, I will go back to Judas Thaddeus. There is something about Judas Thaddeus. He is recorded in John 14 having a conversation. While right in the middle of Jesus' teaching, he just fired a question and said, wait a minute, hold on a second, Jesus. This is my variation. He's like, why are you revealing yourself to us but not to the world? Now, that was that's all that is recorded in all four Gospels. The only words that Judas Thaddeus ever said was he raised the question, which I think is a very good question. How would you look at that? I mean, he's compassionate. He's concerned, saying, and some of it could be just he's curious. Why would you, you're the Messiah. How come you won't tell that to everybody? And he did at times. He taught through parables. He did it through signs and miracles, but it fell on deaf ears. So he says, my time has come. I've already did what I was supposed to. And that's where he passes that spiritual torch to his 12 disciples, which later became his apostles. Disciple means follower. Apostle means being sent out. And so he's going to send them out permanently because he's going to die, buried, resurrect, and then 40 days later he goes and ascends to heaven. So I thought that was kind of cool. I mean, of all the questions, that really, I look at Judas Thaddeus as a very caring person, that he wanted everybody to know about the one true Messiah. And he wanted Jesus to answer his question about that. And later we're going to read about Thomas. Thomas did the same thing. He raised the question on that very same conversation in John 14, talking about we'll get to Thomas in a moment. But that's just Judas Thaddeus. James, son of Alphaeus, same thing. That's about it. Tradition says that James, Thaddeus, died in Persia or possibly Armenia. Now, again, the Bible does not talk about this. Out of the 12 apostles, which I believe Paul was the 12th one. We'll get into that here in a couple weeks, or at the last lesson. Those two are the only ones. James, the son of Zebedee, not James, son of Alphaeus. James, son of Zebedee, he died by the sword, and then Paul was beheaded. Those are the only two that are mentioned in, which is the first apostle to die, and then the last one that was chosen, you know what I'm saying, with Paul. Both of them are recorded in the scriptures, but tradition has Judas Thaddeus dying in Persia, either being stoned by people who rejected him, or could have been easily crucified, which was a common way to kill people back then. James, son of Alphaeus, the tradition was he went up north to Syria, around Damascus, the very same direction that Saul was going to persecute Christians. And he was up in Syria, and so tradition has him in that part of the region, and he was killed by religious Jews. They had stoned him to death for preaching the gospel. The point is, regardless exactly where or how, these young men were sold out to follow Jesus. These guys were not 45 years old. They weren't 60 years old when Jesus called them to follow. But at the time of them giving their lives for Jesus Christ, they were probably in their 40s, maybe even in their 60s. They were sold out. This is something that they were going to do for the rest of their life. Thomas, a.k.a. Doubting Thomas.
The doubter.
Okay? So we talked about the first two forgotten disciples out of the 12. They're easily forgotten. People or they get them confused. And they, well, isn't he this or isn't he that? And so Thomas is I call him he's the misunderstood disciple. Okay? But let's break it down. Thomas Didymus. There's some passages that refer to him as Didymus. Thomas is you have the Hebrew name Taom, and then you have Tooma, which is Aramaic. Didymus is the Greek variation, is the Greek name or Greek word. What does Thomas mean in the Hebrew and Aramaic? It's the same thing with Didymus. If you know Greek, very good. Twin. Now, people think I've had people tell me before, Thomas Didymus means doubter. And then that's not what that means. Didymus is Greek for twin. Tooma in Aramaic means twin. Now, we know that most likely this was a nickname, because you don't just name your child twin. I mean, like Jacob and Esau had their own names and they were twins. So they didn't say, okay, Jacob and twin. Okay, it doesn't make sense, does it? So Tooma I believe he was a twin. I believe we don't know anything about his twin, but that's what he was called. It could have been just a nickname, and that's all we have on that part, but that's what his name means, is twin. Now, somebody go to John 11, and we can break this down. Either you can read all 16 verses, or you can just read a passage and then I'll finish it.
I have it right here, so let me go ahead and read it.
All right, go ahead. You want to read the whole thing or just read part of it? Okay.
Unless you want to, what verses?
John 11, 1 through 16.
Now a certain man was sick, named Lazarus of Bethany, the town of Mary and her sister Martha. It was that Mary which anointed the Lord with ointment, and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was sick. Therefore his sisters sent unto him, saying, Lord, behold, he whom thou lovest is sick. And Jesus heard that. When Jesus heard that, he said, This sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, and the Son of God might be glorified thereby. Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. And when he had heard therefore that he was sick, he abode 2 days still in the same place where he was. Then after that saith he to his disciples, Let us go into Judea again. His disciples say unto him, Master, the Jews of late sought to stone thee, and goest thou thither again? Jesus answered, Are there not 12 hours in a day? If any man walk in the day, he stumbleth not, because he seeth the light of this world. But if a man walk in the night, he stumbleth, because there is no light in him. These things said he, and after that he saith unto them, Our friend Lazarus sleepeth, but I go that I may awake him out of his sleep. Then saith his disciples, Lord, if he sleep, he shall be well. Howbeit Jesus spake of his death, but they thought that he had spoken of taking of rest and sleep. Then said Jesus unto them plainly, Lazarus is dead. And I am glad for your sakes that I was not there, to the intent ye may believe. Nevertheless, let us go unto him. Then said Thomas, which is called Didymus, unto his fellow disciples, Let us also go, that we may die with him.
Okay. How would you take this comment from Thomas? Okay? Because there's several ways to look at this. Some can say he's being careless, or just throwing in the towel. It's over. Let's all go die. Or, which the way I look at it, because I think Thomas is misunderstood in a lot of ways in the Gospels, I look at this too, that, hey, look, we made a decision to follow Jesus, no turning back. I'm going to, let's go. If this is how it's going to end, let's go out with a bang. And it's not being a kamikaze mentality. It's, I'm with you, Jesus. Because Peter said the same thing. Oh, I'm with you, Jesus. No matter what, I'll be with you. He goes, no, you're going to deny me 3 times. No, I won't. No, I won't. And look what happened. Thomas, on the other hand, he's like, let's do it. Come on, guys. We're with Jesus during the good days, and we're going to be with Jesus during the difficult days. Let's follow him, even to the point of death. Look at the 3 Hebrew boys. Would you call that boldness, or would you call that foolishness? When they said, King, do what you want. We're not going to bow down. We're not going to worship you. If you kill us, we're still not going to do it. So what's the difference between the 3 Hebrew boys and Thomas's comment? Do you see it similar, or is it different? What do you think?
I see. You still actually have that verse underlined with where's Thomas's bravery right next to it.
There you go. And here we got Judas Thaddeus, meaning courageous heart. And yet we have the dumb, stupid, doubting Thomas, who's referred to so many times. He's the one that has a courageous heart. He's misunderstood. Thomas is misunderstood out of the 12 disciples. That's exactly how I look at it too, Caleb. Is he was like, we're in this all the way, no matter what. And as we know, all 12, not counting Iscariot, but all 12 that the Lord chose himself, he chose, not rolling dice, it's a whole different story. But the Lord chose 12 apostles, and they all served the Lord Jesus till there was no more breath in their life. Dedication, pure dedication. And they knew, especially Saul, and I'm getting ahead of myself, he knew from what the Lord promised him, told him, this is what's going to happen. You're going to go from town to town, and they're going to try to kill you. And he didn't pull a Jonah. Well, I'm going to go the other way. He went. I'm telling you, man, there is much more in these passages. Thomas knowing, hey, this could be the very end, guys. A 19-year-old kid, 18-year-old kid saying, Jesus, I'm with you all the way. I'm following you. No turning back. John 14, 1-7. Who wants to read that one?
All right. Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house there are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go to prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, you may be also. And whither I go, you know the way. You know, and the way you know. Thomas said unto him, Lord, we know not where you go, and how can we know the way? And Jesus said unto him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes unto the Father but by me. If you had known me, if you had known me, you should have known my Father also. And from henceforth you know him and have seen him.
Thank you. So here, in the very same conversation, we got disciples doing what disciples do, and that's raising questions. Talking to the rabbi, asking questions, and Jesus explaining very well. And here is one of the 7 I ams. I think it's the 6th 7 I am. And he says, I am the way. One of the most popular verses, John 14:6. It's a powerful verse. And Thomas set Jesus up perfectly. It's like he kind of served him and Jesus spiked it when it comes to explaining again. He's like, he didn't rebuke Thomas. He said, okay, Thomas, you raised a good question. I'm going to give you a better answer. I am the way. He made it very clear. Very clear. So would we, here's something to think about. Would we would have that verse if Thomas would not have raised that question? Because Jesus is already explaining. He's already talking about it. He's preparing his disciples. This is toward the end. It's drawing toward an end of his ministry. And he's now starting to switch gears with his disciples and starting to explain to them, look, I'm not going to be with you always. You won't see a gray hair on me. I'm not going to be with you for decades on end. I'm going to be here for a very short time, and then I'm leaving. And that's hard for a disciple. And like with Jesus, in some ways, you just got here. It's like we're on 2.5 years now, and you just got here. It's like this is, it hasn't been that long. Some rabbis would teach all to the point where they would be senior citizens teaching a new disciple every time. A new disciple every time. And so they would spend, in some cases, many years with their rabbi, but not with these young guys. They got 3 years, and that was it. That was it. And that concerned Thomas. And here, knowing what he said in John 11, 3 chapters later, you can kind of hear the pain a little bit in Thomas's heart. Like, we don't want you to go, Jesus. What are you talking about? We don't know where you're going. And show us the way because we want to be with you. Thomas had such a compassion for Jesus Christ. He had a love for Jesus Christ that he didn't want Jesus to leave. And neither did the other disciples, obviously. But here we got Thomas is the only one who's expressing that concern that we don't know where you're going, and we want to stay with you. We want to go with you. Show us the way. Again, I think it's very noble of him to have that kind of love and compassion for his rabbi. So now let's go to John chapter 20.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yes.
What does Jesus mean when he says, if you had known me, you should have known my Father also, and from henceforth you know him and have seen me? What does he mean, if you had known me? Or is that just a mistranslation of it?
When he says, he asks them, that's interrupting, but he asks them, like, they say, show us the Father. He's like, it's kind of like a rhetorical statement. He's like, if you had known me, because he said, you'd know the Father because I am.
So it's like a general sense.
So this is from earlier when they were asking about the Father.
Yeah, because he says, in my Father's house.
Right.
And so he's making references about his Father.
But he said, like, if you had known me, wouldn't Thomas have, like, known him, like Jesus? Like, is he saying you don't know me, or you just don't know me in that way yet? Like, you don't see me for who I am yet?
But okay, so let's continue on. So now Philip gets into the conversation. Verse 8, Lord, show us the Father, and it will be enough for us. Jesus replied to him, have I been with you so long without your knowing me, Philip? See, now he's raising a different question. Philip, I mean, we've been together for 2.5 years, and you still don't get it. You don't understand. The Father is in me. I'm in the Father. We are one. And so that's what he kind of explains. Don't you believe that I am united with the Father, and the Father united with me? What I am telling you, I am not saying on my own initiative. The Father living in me is doing his own works. Trust me that I am united with the Father, and the Father united with me. But if you can't, then trust because of the works themselves.
So this is more of like a loving rebuke, just telling them that, like, you guys just don't get it yet, basically.
Well, but he's also challenging too. Like, wait, okay, guys, man, listen. we're not on day one. This is not the first week. I mean, was it shortly after? I mean, Philip was there for the wedding at Cana, and I don't know if all 12 were chosen yet. The Bible, if you go through the chronological chapter by chapter in John, he only had 6 disciples with him at the wedding of Cana, and that's why he wasn't ready yet to start doing his, he says, the signs, because he hasn't had all 12 disciples yet. He wasn't ready to really start showing them who he was. Right now, they're just following him, saying, okay, you're the Messiah. That's all they know. You're the one that was promised by Isaiah, the one that was promised by Jeremiah, the one that came out of Micah, and all these Zechariah. All these prophets have talked about you. That's all they know. So we're following you, and we're listening to you. But you're the Son of God? That blew their mind. They struggle with that. And that's why Abraham Qatar is struggling with the concept that Jesus is the Son of God. Isa the prophet, not a problem. Yeshua, the Son of God, they struggle with that. Jews today, religious Jews in America and around the world, you can sit there in Jerusalem and talk to somebody about Jesus being the Son of God. You see them gnashing their teeth just like they did with Stephen. They get angry. They get irate. How dare you? This is blasphemy. How could he be the Son of God? And these young teenagers, who've all they've been taught is Deuteronomy 6:4. Listen, O Israel, the Lord is God, the Lord is one. Not the Lord is God and the Son of God and the Spirit of God. They weren't taught that. But they were promised a Messiah, the Son of David, to come in the house of David. But to sit there and say he's the Son of God, this is something that he's being a good rabbi. He's explained to his disciples, trust me in this. And that's what we have to do. That's the key word. If you don't trust in me, then look at my works. Look what I've been doing. That I am of the Father in heaven. I am the Son of God. And that's where this was a major turning point. Thaddeus got involved, Philip got involved, so did Thomas. And they're raising good questions, and Jesus is making it very clear to them. And that's why later on Thaddeus says, how come you're revealing this to me and not to the whole world? And Jesus later on in the Great Commission, go into what? All the world and preach the gospel. That's the good news. So Thaddeus, so in a way, I like to wonder when he was on Mount of Olives, he looked at Thaddeus saying, it's time to go throughout the whole world. You raised the question. Here's the answer. You're the one that's going to go out into all the world. So that's how I look at this. Is he's a loving rebuke, but I think a lot of times too he's also challenging them. You got to trust me, even if it doesn't make sense. I've asked my children to trust me on things that to them is probably thinking that makes absolutely no sense to me, especially my oldest one.
Yeah.
But she has to learn, as well as we have to trust, even if it doesn't make sense. That's where faith comes in.
I think what I was struggling with too, but now that's what you said makes sense, is because I think, is it earlier in John where he's rebuking the sermon where all the people that were following him stopped following him.
Yes, John 6.
You must.
I am the bread of life.
I am the bread of life. You must drink my blood and eat my flesh and all that. And he rebukes them, strongly, saying like, you don't know me because you're not you're children of the devil, basically.
Yeah.
And so it just jumped out to me when he said here, you don't know me, but he meant it in a different context.
Yeah.
So that it makes so much more sense now with what you said, and all that. So that's what, because I was like, wait a second, he doesn't mean it that way, does he? So
yeah, I was kind of going back and forth on when we were reading it, like which context. So
Yeah.
I'm glad you kind of stopped it and we had a discussion about it.
yeah.
Good question. That's how we're going to learn together, understanding it. And I'm telling you, the more I read through and I keep reading through, my dad always told me you can never exhaust the Word of God. And I'm telling you, that is so true. Because you can go back through something and say, man, case in point, how many times have you read John 14?
Yes.
See?
But it never jumped out at me like that.
And now we're talking about it, and it's so cool. So, any other questions?
I was gonna. I don't know if it's kind of a question, but it's kind of like to go back with what you were saying too. What he says, "Have I been so long time?" I just checked up with John too. This was like the last major dialogue between Christ and his disciples before the crucifixion. So it was almost like this before the end of his. So I guess I'd ask you. So this is like very close to the end before crucifixion. It's kind of like saying, "This is it. This is the end. This is right." It's almost like, because then I was reading on what you had said, and then if you continue on further, it's kind of like the last his last sermon, like our dialogue between just him and the disciples. Like, listen, this is happening. You know, I'm about to leave.
It's about a few months.
Like you said, I know it's not like right before, but just from how John records, it's like the last one that he records was almost you saying, "This is my last sermon before I give you the commission." So
that's right.
You need to make it's almost like that's why it says it has been so long. It's time to nail this down. Kind of what you were saying. Like this is the. Not the transition, so to speak, was like this. It's coming down to I'm not going to be. I'm only with you for 3 years. Kind of
that's right.
Saying. So it's
exactly. Yeah, because when did Jesus die? What season or what?
Passover.
Passover. So that's spring. Okay, so this is getting the last, I would say 4, 5, maybe 6 months, give or take, somewhere around that time period that it's coming down, like he said. It's coming down to the very end. Okay, so now let's get to the big one that everybody just always loves to just beat him to pieces. John 20, verses 24 through 29. John 20, 24 through 29. This, Andrew, I believe this is where we're going to see the loving rebuke here. I think in John 14.
I've got it right here. here.
Okay, go for it. Read it, brother.
Through what? What verse?
24 through 29.
29. But Thomas, one of the 12, called Didymus, was not with them when Jesus came. The other disciples therefore said to him, "We have seen the Lord." But he said to him, "Except I see in his hands the print of nails, and put my fingers into the print of the nails, and thrust my hand into his side, I will not believe." And after 8 days, again his disciples were within, and Thomas was with them. Then came Jesus, the doors being shut, and stood in the midst, saying, "Peace be unto you." Then he said to Thomas, "Reach hither thy finger, and behold my hands, and reach hither thy hand, and thrust into my side, and be not faithless, but believing." And Thomas answered and said unto him, "My Lord and my God." And Jesus said unto him, "Thomas, because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are they that have not seen, yet have believed."
All right. So a powerful response from Jesus. Obviously, he always knows what to say, when to say it, and how to say it. But let's talk about this for a second, okay? So let's unfold this. Was Peter and John ever rebuked from a preacher for doubting?
Peter was when he was on the water. And then the disciples as a whole for having little faith whenever they were in the boat.
Okay.
So is that
But
doubting? No, that's just little faith.
Well, it's faithless, which would be considered doubting.
Yeah.
Who Christ
I
is.
would say that.
All right.
Doubting is
Yeah.
ability, so to speak.
Come on, you just
Any
ruined
other-
this whole point. You just ruined
No,
this whole
this is
point.
good. I'm raising the question because there's another one that happened again with Peter and John. They doubted, and yet they're not rebuked by anybody about it.
Was it the storm when they were on the boat in the storm?
No, not this one. I'll give you a hint. It's after. Go ahead.
Isn't it when they were told he is risen, but they had to go look for themselves?
There it is. Now, what was now this is the Jewishness that we miss so much. What did Peter and John need? What was it?
A sign.
There it was. And we beat up Thomas. Come on, Thomas. He's Jewish. He's thinking like a Jew. He is a Jew. I have to see it for me to believe. He beat them all up. Doubting Thomas. For decades, centuries. Doubting Thomas, doubting Thomas. But yet Peter and John can do it. See, they can doubt the women. You know. He's alive. No, he's not. They did not believe it, and they ran to the tomb. And then the Bible says, then they remember what Jesus had said. They walked away, and the doubt was gone. This is something that's very important about Thomas's character. One, he's a Jewish man. He's thinking like a Jewish person, okay? We got to give him some slack in this. Second, there's an honest doubt, and there's a dishonest doubt. An honest doubt, someone says, in this case, in context, right, Kate? Did Jesus really resurrect from the dead? Is he really the Son of God? Is he the Messiah? I mean, John the Baptist doubted him. He was on cloud 9 preaching. All of a sudden, the man's thrown in prison. Is he really the Messiah? Well, we don't beat up John the Baptist because the guy got his head chopped off. So we give him some slack, but not Thomas. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. They all get the doubt except Thomas because his name is Didymus. And most people don't know Greek and they think, oh, that means doubt. I just want to anyway, I'll leave it alone. But
Dale said I'm doubting or not.
Yeah, I doubt you don't know what that means. You don't know what Didymus means, do you? I doubt that.
And this is an honest doubt.
But here we have an honest doubt and a dishonest doubt. And Thomas is saying, did he really? Because a person with an honest doubt is going to sit there and say, Abraham Qatar, back to him again. He has a choice to have an honest doubt or dishonest doubt. He's going to sit there and say, is Jesus the way, the truth, and life? I gave him John 14:6. Is he the way, the truth, and the life? Is he the Son of God? Is he Jewish? Is he the Messiah? I don't know, but I want to find out. A dishonest doubt will raise the very same questions, but will walk away and say, I don't care. I don't want to know. Pontius Pilate asked one of the biggest questions, the most important question, to the greatest source to answer that question. Jesus, what is truth? And the heartbreaking side of it was, he left before Jesus was even given an answer. He really didn't want to know. He walked away. And here we have Thomas, who missed the first appearing, right? But if he truly didn't care if Jesus was the Son of God and the Messiah, he would have gave up a long time ago. He wouldn't have been there with his young fellow disciples. And so he had an honest doubt. He wanted to know. He heard, well, I want to see. I'm Jewish. Show me the sign. I got to see it, to believe it. But Jesus, loving, caring rebuke that you're talking about earlier, Andrew, responded because he knows Gentiles don't require signs. Jews do. Gentiles, we deal with knowledge. That's why the Apostle Paul, which I'm getting ahead of myself, Mars Hill, he didn't perform miracles to the Greeks. They didn't care about miracles. They didn't want to see science. It was all about philosophy. Let's debate. And Paul went there and he preached the knowledge of Jesus Christ. And so here we have a young Jewish boy, 18, I'm guessing, 19, somewhere around there, acting like a Jew. Thinks like a Jew, responds like a Jew. And yet, notice, Jesus didn't come down on him. You disgrace me. 3 years, Thomas. 3 years. And this is how, no. Here I am, Thomas. Here's the sign. Here's the evidence. Come. And I think that's something that we can speak a lot, not just on Thomas as a young Jewish boy, but also on the person of Jesus. How many times have I doubted? Or how many times I have questioned? Or how many times I gave up over something in my walk with the Lord? And he lovingly rebuked me. I'm right here. I'm faithful. I'm here. No matter what. I love that about that conversation. The tradition says that he went to India, Thomas did, where he started 7 churches in India, preached the gospel. Again, nothing concrete evidence, but Thomas is a name that you will find in India for centuries now, that some families who are not Hindu, but they will name their child as their middle name, or maybe or someone who has come out of Hinduism, and they would take Thomas as a last name. Like you would see sometimes in the tradition of, this is Abu, a follower of Jesus Christ, or Abu Thomas. You know what I'm saying? And so that has been, and I can't explain it, but Thomas seems like the only part of tradition where we have some form of evidence that he was in India, the impact he made, the churches he started, the gospel he preached, it made an impact. Even though what's heartbreaking is, just like Nineveh, there was a great revival, a great repentance. It only takes one generation to go a different direction. Now, what happened after that? I've had the privilege living in Missouri, Springfield, Missouri, and now it's all over across the states. So many melting pots in certain cities, usually around coffee shops. It's pretty cool, where you'll see Indians, Asians, Arabs, maybe even Africans gathering, studying together or going to coffee shop together. And I met a young man, I think he pronounced it Vivad. Vivad is how you would say, oh no, Vinod, Vinod, a born-again believer going to a secular college. He and I had some of the greatest fellowship. He and I tried to witness to our Muslim friends who they all went to the same college together. And Vinod, and he was from India. His father was a born-again believer. They had been beaten up numerous times, had to move to different places. He said growing up, he says it was common. He said he kind of laughed about it. He said it's almost like we planned it every year, knowing we probably had to move somewhere else because my dad loved to share the gospel, and he would get beat up to the point where it was threatening our lives as a family. We had to move to a different place. He says, that was my childhood. And I'm like, and I would complain when it's raining outside on the way to church. I mean, like how pathetic I am. What story could I tell Vinod? Yeah, I stubbed my toe and, I really had a hard time limping into church. I mean, it's like, seriously? But he told me, he's the one that actually kind of got me on the path to study about Thomas, who was a missionary. He believes Thomas was one of the first missionaries in India, because he says Thomas is a very highly respected name. Of course, not higher than Jesus, but amongst the born-again believers in those churches today. I was like, that was really, really cool. So that's the tradition on Thomas. So just to wrap things up, the person who wrote the book of James is, and I shared these passages before to those at the last Bible study, is Jesus the half-brother. He became a born-again believer after the resurrection. 1 Corinthians 15:7, Galatians 1:19, and especially Acts 15. He was at the Council of Jerusalem, who stood up for Paul during that time of being on his behalf and supporting Paul. So that's the half-brother who wrote the book of James, not James, son of Alphaeus. So what can we learn about these three lesser men? Our Lord can use anyone. As a whole, these young men were unwanted. They were uneducated and unworthy by man's opinion. By society, these guys were nobodies. They were rejects. but not to Jesus Christ. He called them out to be followers, and they lived their lives in honoring Jesus Christ. And it's kind of cool. I can rattle off pastors who are alive today, from David Jeremiah to Chuck Swindoll to I would say Adrian Rogers. He had passed away, but let's say back when he was alive, I would hear him preach on the radio. Jerry Falwell was another great preacher growing up, hearing about him. I know these guys, but they have no idea who I am. And we always hear about Peter, James, and John. Peter, James, and John. Peter, James, and John. And rightly so, because so much of the gospel does surround who these three men were. Even, Andrew or Matthew, which is going to be the next one we're going to talk about. We hear these names, but we sometimes forget about the ones that are forgotten or misunderstood. I'm thankful that's not the case with Jesus Christ. I'm not a pastor of 1,500 people or 3,000 people every Sunday, and people come to hear what I have to say. But yet the Lord would bring someone like Abraham Qatar across my path, and I got a chance to be a missionary to that one Muslim. That's all that matters. And I'm content, and I'm thankful. I may not be the tallest vegetable in God's garden. I'm just a little carrot top, okay? But yet, you know what? The carrots have more nutrients than the corn. So take that, pastors. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. But in all sincerity, I'm just thankful to be in the Lord's garden, spiritually speaking. I'm thankful to be in His kingdom. I'm thankful to be in His service. I don't have to be in front of all the people or be on YouTube and have, these people have, Candace Owens has millions and millions of followers. That will never be the case for me, and I'm okay with that. I don't have to have that. Bring me Abraham Qatar every week. I'll be so thankful. Bring me someone across my path where I can give them a gospel tract and share the hope, share the truth, and be able to be a blessing to them. And so I'm okay to be considered Daniel the Less, because in God's eyes, He called me to do what I'm supposed to do. The same thing with you all. We may not be the big names that people read our books and they come hear our lectures. I might hear Charity, but yet, you know what? Listen, He's called us to be who we're supposed to be salt, to be light, to be His follower, and to do what's right. Amen.
Amen.